Hello and welcome to Friday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, and on screen we have a puzzle, but not just any puzzle. This is a puzzle by the genius sudoku god Phistomefel, who is turning his attention to pencil puzzles, it seems. This looks very interesting. Mark has tried this and tested it for me. He said with a grin, I suspect, on his face that this is an approachable puzzle. Whatever that means. That might mean this is relatively gentle. It might mean that this is the most complicated thing in Christendom. We will have to see. Now, this isn't in fact the most recent puzzle by Phistomefel that he's released over on Logic Masters Germany. He has released another puzzle as well, which is a Star Battle puzzle. And I'm a massive fan of Star Battle as well. And I was tempted to try that one on the channel today, but Mark said no, do this one. So what I'll do, if I get time, is I will record a solve of the Star Battle as well, and I will put that up for you guys on Patreon. And if you are a patron of the channel, you'll be able to watch that. I'll put a link under the video, obviously, so you can have a look at Phistomefel's puzzle and try to play it as well. Now, anything else I want to mention? Yes, there are two amazing bits of news actually. The first Miracle Sudoku is out on Android, out on Google Play now, so it's out on everything. I'm so sorry for the delay. I have no idea why it took them so long to approve the game, but they have approved it. It is live. Again, I will put a link under the video. Hopefully a number of you will have seen the tweet that I've just made as well. So it's all good, and we really hope you enjoy the game. Now, the other bit of exciting news for patrons of the channel relates to our competition puzzle that we released about a week ago. It was this incredibly difficult and brutal puzzle by Mitchell Lee. It was an odd, even little killer Sudoku. And now, the deadline, by the way, if you're still trying to solve that puzzle, is Monday. So do keep your entries going till then. We are going to try and make sure we announce the names of everybody who submits a correct solution to it, because anyone who gets through that puzzle deserves some credit. Now, this morning I spent a very enjoyable half an hour watching Mitchell Lee's solution video to his puzzle. It's really, really fantastic to see somebody as clever as Mitchell talk through such a brilliant construction. He explains exactly how to do it, exactly what the logic was. I know a number of you have written in who have solved it, saying that you had to use very heavy bifurcation, and what on earth was the logical way. Well, let me tell you, this video reveals all. It's just gorgeous. If you want to see a video with some beautiful cold hard logic in it, then check out Patreon on Tuesday, I suppose. Tuesday will be the day that we release the video. Now, let me tell you the rules to Phistomefel's puzzle. What we've got here is every cell of the grid has to be part of exactly one pentomino. So let's just quickly remind ourselves what a pentomino is. A pentomino is any shape that consists of 5 orthogonally connected cells. So this would be a very simple pentomino. That would be a pentomino, this would be a pentomino, and lots of other things can be pentominoes. But basically 5 orthogonally connected cells are pentominoes. So we've got to put every cell in the grid into a pentomino. Orthogonally adjacent pentominoes have to be different from each other, i.e. they cannot be transformed into each other by reflection and or rotation. Okay, that makes sense. In addition, this is where it gets complicated. A round trip has to be drawn into the grid. It runs horizontally and vertically between the centres of cells, and it may not cross or touch itself. A clue in a cell indicates how many cells of the according pentomino are passed through by the round trip. Okay, I think I understand that. Every pentomino contains at most one clue. So the clues are these numbers, I presume. A pentomino without a clue has to be visited by the round trip at least once. Okay. Wow, what a rule set. I hope that's clear to everybody. So we're going to have to use the Pemper software. We're in Pemper today to draw loops. Now, Mark suggested I think to draw pentominoes you click surface. Now if you want to draw loop you have to click composite and select loop. And there's loads of options. Oh, that was it, line or ox. That's what we need, line or ox, and that allows us, yeah, here we go. We can label cells either as circles, which mean they're on the loop, X's, they're not on the loop, or we can just drag and pull and create loops like this. So that is what I'm going to do. Do have a go yourselves. There's a link under the video as usual. I think this might be a long one, but let's see. With that, let's get cracking. Now, where shall we start? We shall start in... Well, I can draw a little bit of this pentomino. Let's start there. Make it blue. There we go. We can draw those 3 bits in. And we can do that because we know that any pentomino can only have 1 number in it. And that means this 2 has to get out. Look. And now the blue one has to get out a bit. So the blue one is forced to be a W. The red one is forced... and the red one can't be another W. We can't put 2 W's next to each other. That's one of the rules. So that one must be... What's that one? An N pentomino. This 2 must get out somehow. Let's make that one blue as well. That one must get out somehow. This one must get out somehow. And that means we can get another one, another 2 there actually. And this one, make that one yellow. There we go. Now, can we get any more easy pickings here? Let us go for... sorry, no, don't know. No, I don't know. Let's turn our attention to loop then. There must be some... Yeah, there's loads of restrictions on the loop. This corner cell can't be loop, because if it is, the loop has to take 2 cells from the 1 pentomino. That's not allowed. So that's not loop. Same reason this isn't loop. That can't be a loop. This one, can that be loop? That's interesting. This one's a bit more complicated, but this one can't be loop either. Because if it is, you can see this one has nowhere to go. This loop end either turns right and takes a 3rd cell in the 2 pentomino, that's not allowed, or continues up and takes a 2nd cell in the 1 pentomino. So that is an X. And that creates another corner, look, and we can't take 2 cells in the 1 pentomino. Now, in fact, I'm wondering now about this square. So if this is in... this breaks. Okay, again, so clever the way these things are constructed. But let's think about this. Can this be a corner? And the answer is no. Because if it is, where does this loop end go? It can't take a 3rd cell in its pentomino, so it must turn right. This can't take a 2nd cell in its pentomino, so it must create a very, very tiny loop. That is not the idea here. The idea is to create one great big loop. So this is out. That creates a corner, so that's out. So in fact, the W pentomino has exactly 1 loop segment, and it's that one. But unfortunately, we don't know whether the loop goes like this or like this. We don't really know much about it. I'm going to try this cell now. So if this cell is loop, we get another problem, because what does this one do? It can't go down, it can't turn right. So that's out. This is out for the same reason. It creates a corner. Okay, can we keep this going? We can do a silly pencil mark. I'll do a silly pencil mark. I think this square has to be loop, because if it's not, the implication is that the 2 red cells we've not yet marked for loop in this pentomino must both be loop, and that of course isolates the loop here. So this has to be loop. Now, one of the things about these puzzles typically is it's very much a case of sort of looking at them and feeling where they look weak. In fact, this square looks weak to me. If that's... Yeah, if this is loop, what happens? It has to do this. Now, this loop end here can't turn up, because that would be a 3rd cell, so it has to go across there, and now it's got nowhere to go. It either has to take a 3rd cell there, or turn back up here and take a 3rd cell in this one. So in fact, that's not loop. But that could turn up there. Okay, so we're not doing too badly, but so if that's not loop now, that would have to be loop and it would isolate. So this has to be loop. So now this cell, maybe? If that's not loop, it looks like everything's going to get terribly congested here. Yeah, this is good. It forces that one up, and now it's got nowhere to go again. So that's also loop. Now that's interesting, because that's the only loop segment in the yellow. So if we can force... I'm just wondering if we can force this cell to do things it doesn't want to do. Now, let me think. If we go, if this red one turned right, that's going to force the green to turn right. That's going to force the yellow to turn right. The yellow hasn't got much room, so it would also have to take that square. Oh, it's very close to breaking. I think it might be broke. I think it's broken. I think it's broken because this is the only cell in the yellow that can be loop. So we'd have this arrangement. Now this circle, we'd have to go through this circle. Now what on earth happens to the green now? Well, the green's only got 3 cells. It needs another one. That one. And now this loop end can't go either way. It can't go here. We've already used our loop segment from the green region. It can't go. So it can't go left and it can't go down. So, aha. What does all that mean? Well, if I can get back to it, it means this square here. Oh no! What are you doing? It's deleting itself. Ah! What on earth happened then? I don't know what that did. Hang on, I'll just have to pause while I get back to that position. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. That was extremely odd. It basically kept forcing me to unwind where I got to, no matter what I did. So I've had to reload the page and try and remember where I was, which I think is here. So forgive me if I've got 1 or 2 less pencil marks or I've got different colours. It could well be the case. And now we have to figure out what to do next. And I am going to try and go for this square. Have we done something with this square? I think I'd done something with this square, because fairly obviously this square here can't be, if that's loop, that's a corner and we take 2 cells from the green. So I probably had that one done before. So this is not loop. So maybe we can tell whether this is loop or not. This square is interesting because if it is loop, exactly one of these 2 squares cannot be green. Because one of them must be green, because the green's only got 2 in it at the moment. But if both of these were green, they would both have to be X's, and you can see if they were both X's, the loop would be isolated. They both have to be X's because the green has got its loop segment in it. So one of these is green. Now this is interesting. Look, if this is green, now let's have a look at what that looks like. So now this would have to be an X. Now look, that's going to come through there, hit this and break our 2 region. Our 2 region's now got 2 loop segments. It needs a 3rd. Oh, don't. Terrified of this undo button. So this can't be green. Now the only other thing that could be green is this one. Let's just have a look at this, see if that helps us. Oh, it's the same problem. You can't. It's exactly the same problem. As soon as you try and make this a loop segment, it doesn't matter which of these you make green. You end up with a problem. Look, in this 2 region, it's now got to extend to take a 3rd square. So I think we can say with certainty, don't break, Don't break. Oh, is it going to break? I think it might have broken again. I don't know what is going on with this. I want this square to not... I'll just change it. This square is not green. That means this square is not green. That means this square is loop. When I say not green, I mean not loop. Loop, they've got two corner... Oh, no, they've got one corner of the loop. We don't know whether it comes out through the one or turns back. So... Now, this is the square that looks weak to me now. Let's have a look at that square. Can this be green? If this is green... If this is green, actually, I'm now sort of struggling to see what this means. It means... problems. It means problems. And problems are good for us because now take a look at this. If we now put in the loop constraints, we've created a little tunnel here and we reach this square in the green. But now what on earth do we do with this loop? If we take it down here, which we have to, we now have to extend our green into one of these two squares, both of which contain loop, where we've already got our loop in the green. There's only one loop segment. This is not right. Oh, this is great. Now please don't break. Please don't break. That didn't break. That's good. So now this does not turn right. So it goes downwards. And that is its loop segment, therefore. And if it doesn't turn right, what does it do? What does it do? So I guess we could ask the question again. Can it turn right here? So if the green turns right there, does that give us a problem? I think it might do. I think it might do, because that's now an X. This becomes a corner. I mustn't close the loop. That forces this down into a 1. And, okay, I'm not sure if this is broken or not. I think it's quite interesting because now this square can't be green because it's got a second loop segment in it. So the green would either go here, and that's interesting. The green can never go here because that breaks the yellow straight away. Because of the loop implication, the loop has to come into a corner there, and the yellow has to extend to here and would need a second loop cell. So actually, we can say that... I'm going to not try and use undo. So if this is the arrangement, the green would have to come down and form an N. And this is broken for a different reason. This is not broken at the top, this is broken at the bottom. Because now this has to extend. And now what on earth do you do with this cell? Whatever colour this is, where does it take its next cell from? It can't turn right, it would be a second loop cell. It must take that cell, but now we're going to have to close the loop in order to not have a problem with a second cell in the 1 region. So in fact, I think we are on... Oh no. I don't know what is going on here. Oh, it's working. Okay, good. Good. So it doesn't turn right. That's what we've proved. If it doesn't turn right, it must drop down. That means that square is in, which means it's not in the loop because it's green. That creates a cul-de-sac through which we or a tunnel through which we must pass. Well, this green can't be an I pentomino because it's already next to an I pentomino, so it must be an L pentomino. It must go here. Therefore, we get another X. This must come through this gap and hit this one cell, whatever colour that is. We'll make that blue. And so now, all of a sudden, look, we're starting to hem this yellow cell in a little bit. This is a loop. Yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting. This is a loop cell. So if it's a loop cell, it's not part of the yellow because the yellow already has its loop cell. So now there isn't that much space for this pentomino that we're going to construct out of the yellow cell to be. It can be... In fact, it's quite interesting to think about cells like this. Can this cell be yellow? If that's yellow, it creates a problem. That is not yellow. The reason it's not yellow is that therefore has to be an X, and we've got a tunnel going up into the top of the grid where we've got a problem. This is isolated. That doesn't work. So actually, this square here is not yellow. And if it's not yellow, that means where is our pentomino here that forms the yellow? If it can't take this square, it must take both of those squares at least, and possibly it comes out further. And both of these squares are therefore not loop. That pen's in this grey. This grey must be part of the 5. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? That 5 has to be part of the loop. That has to be part of the loop. That has to be part of the loop. That has to be part of the loop. That's made me feel much better. Now, okay. What do we do next? Oh, I know what I could do. I was looking at this square and whether it could be yellow, but when I made it an X, I had a problem with the top of the grid. So this square, I think, has to be, if that's an X ever, whatever colour it is, I run into a problem in this cell. Okay, so this is definitely in the loop. Sorry, now this square's in the loop, otherwise this cell is isolated, because obviously if that's an X, that's loop, and the loop has to just go in there. That's not going to work. So this is in the loop. Now, what is the next step that we need to fathom out here? Oh, I was about to say that this 1 has to escape, and it's almost true to say that, but it's not quite. I mean, 1, 2, it does. I think it has to take that square, because otherwise there isn't enough room for 5 cells in it. Okay, so what do we do next? We're going to have to figure something out, but I'm not sure what it is I've got to figure out. I'm not even... Maybe I can ask questions like, what if this square is yellow? If that square's yellow, it has to be an X. That forces the loop up through here. This mustn't be a W. So it would have to be an N pentomino. Oh, no, that's... this is very... Oh, this is cool, actually. Sorry, I should have got this before. This doesn't work at all. In this configuration, what do we do next for this yellow pentomino? It can't take this square because it's already got its loop segment. It can't take this square. That's a loop segment. So it's got to take one of these two squares for its last cell. Well, we can't attach a W to another W, so that it can't take this square. So it has to take this square, and that is a problem, because if it takes that square, now this grey one hasn't got 5 cells it can take. So in fact, we can say with certainty, if the machine allows me to, this square is not in the yellow pentomino. Therefore, the yellow pentomino must go down one. And it can't be an L. There's already an L attached to it, so it must be a Z, I think. And we get some more X's, look. Now, this is a corner, so that must be like that. This is a corner as well, actually. So this 5 must extend downwards. So it's going to come down to here. And the... Oh no, it does work. It does work. The 5, what does it do next? It can't be a Z, because there's already a Z here. It can't be an L, there's already an L here. So it must be a U. And all of those get filled in with circles. And now this 1 is very hemmed in. Yeah, this 1 is a problem. Let's have a look at the 1. If the 1 turns right, how on earth does that work? It would have to take these 2 cells, and now look, it's had its one thing. This doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all. These all have to be X's, and the loop has to come down here and attach to this 3 pentomino, which has only meant to have 3 loop segments in and would have 5 loop segments in. So in fact, again, we're off and running. This 1 thing doesn't turn right. It must go down, and therefore it forms an X. So the loop turns that way, which means this is part of a different coloured pentomino, that square. That square, let's make it yellow. So it must do this. The blue pentomino needs to get out. The blue pentomino's got to come round the corner and be a V. The yellow pentomino comes here. Can't be an L, so it can't take this square. So it must be it must take the final square here and be a Z. Oh, no, the Z is fine. The Z is fine. It's not attached to this Z. So we end up with this position, and we can put some loop segments in. Let's do that. These must all be X's. And okay, so now here's an interesting point. This 1 here, this grey 1, can't be in the same region as this loop segment, because if it is, if we make this grey, what do we do with this cell? This cell has to be part of the grey pentomino. It can't reach another pentomino. So that would give 2 loop segments within the grey pentomino, which is wrong. So we can unwind that. Well, not when I say unwind, this has to not be part of the grey pentomino. So it must be part of the 5 pentomino, I think. I'll make that green. So all of those 3 squares turn green. This square, I guess, could still be grey or green. The grey has to extend down. It's got to come down here. Okay, what now? I feel that was a good deduction. I just need to extend it. Maybe. Oh, here's something. Is it possible that this this 5 pentomino doesn't take this square. If it doesn't take this square, it must take both of those squares, which makes it a Z pentomino attached to another Z pentomino. That's not allowed, so it must take this square. It must, unfortunately, none of those things it's attached to are actually problematic for it. Really would be nice to know whether this is grey or green. I don't know how to tell that. I know what I could do. I could label that square red, just to use up a few more seconds to give my brain time to percolate. What on earth do I do next here? Maybe I meant to look in a different part of the grid. So I sort of feel like I'm struggling to see how to... the blue now has to take this square. So let's take that square and see if that helps us with anything. So this is going to be either a Y pentomino or an I pentomino. This one has to get out. Let's label that up. We'll make that yellow. These have to be loop segments along the 5. If this is grey, I think that's the question I want to ask. Is it possible this loop segment is grey? Because if it is, it immediately hits a barrier. All of those would have to turn out. That would force the loop up here. That might be a problem. Yes, it is. I managed to force this loop up into this 2 region. Once I force it up into the 2 region, it's broken. It can't get out. It can't take a third cell in this 2, and it can't take a third cell in the blue. So that was a good question. It just took me a long time to think of asking it. So what can we say? We can say this is not grey, therefore it is green. Therefore it's does that. Now the only question I think that it feels like that... Oh, yeah, this is good. So now that allows us to ask a question about the grey region. What is the grey region doing? In particular, is it possible the grey region doesn't hit this square? Now if it doesn't hit this square, where does it go? Well, it has to take this square for sure. And now if it's not taking this square, it either has to be a Z attaching to that or an L attaching to that. That won't work. So it does take this square, and that pens in this 2 a little bit. So maybe that's important. Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe a good question to ask now is whether this square can be... If that's not in, do I get the same problem with this 2 region up here? I do! I force it up there again into this region where it keeps giving me a lot of joy. So this square is in the loop, which means the rest of this is not in the loop. Which means what exactly? It means that's a corner, so it does that. This can't turn left now because that's going to isolate the loop. So this doesn't turn left. So how does this square get reached? It must get reached like that, otherwise the loop will close too early. This square's out. This could still loop around like that, could it maybe? I'm not sure. Okay, but this feels like it was better progress, although now I'm stuck again. So what do? We have got to go... I feel this 2 is weak. Let's have a look at this more closely. If it does that... Yes, it is. This is beautiful. This is good. This is a good thought. If it comes into this corner, because it's forced out of the 2 region again and back to this point, now what does it do? It has to turn this way. But this, you can see, this now can't be part of the 2 region. The 2 region's already used up. So the only pentomino it could be part of is the yellow region. And then where would it go next? It's got to go to another... Although, no, it would have to either close the loop or go to another cell in the yellow region. I thought I made a boo-boo there, but that looks right. So this is not in. So it turns that way. That turns this way. Let's try that again. Can it go up again? Again, it would have to come here. Again, it gets isolated. Again, it's exactly the same logic, just one further along the grid. Maybe I should do it that way round. I don't know. You know what I mean. So we go back to this position, I think. And this can't be in, so it extends. I'm going to do it again. Can it go up again? Oh, this time it'll probably work. So it has to extend here. This now can't... Oh, no, it doesn't work because this can't be blue. If that's blue, it would be a 3rd blue loop segment, so it can only be yellow. If it's yellow, this has to be blue, and what happens next? Its next move is either into a yellow, which it can't be, or a blue, which it can't be. So actually, it can't turn up here. Now, if it can't turn up here, it must extend... Oh, now I've got a problem. Oh, no, I can make this blue, of course. So this must be blue now to stop me having a problem, because this has to... Oh, my goodness, what did I just do then? Please don't break. I've got to extend this, this like this. This... yellow region has now had its 1 loop segment, so this has got to turn up into a loop segment, turn right. It's got to go through a little bit of a tunnel here created by this X. This has got to come here, and those 2 loop segments there are some other. So now, what do we do now? This is all part, of course, of a new pentomino. I don't know whether it connects to the 2 or not. So... I've got to extend, I suppose, this 1 region as well. So that's fairly straightforward. If the one region takes this square, you can see that therefore the red region would be pushed into the 2 cell, and the loop would have to continue into the 2 cell, and it would have 3 loop segments in it, which would break it. So this square is never part of the yellow. So the yellow must turn up and only has one way to go. It must form an N pentomino, and the whole of it is an X. That shifts the green into this region. That's used up the 2 cells here, look. This is hugely important because now this pentomino does that. And we can fill in some of the options along it. So those 2 are loop, these 2 are not loop. We've got to continue. I'll make those red again. These 2 loop segments are done. That completes our red pentominoes loop segments. Oh, the blue. This blue can't take that square because that's an N pentomino attached to an M pentomino. So it must be a W pentomino, and now this grey pentomino can't be a W pentomino as well. So that must be an F pentomino. That means we go like this. The 5 here is hemmed in. So that must be true. Now this is very interesting again. What a puzzle. Now the 5 we can label with a new colour, and the 1 we need to label with a new colour. Now the 1 has already got its loop segment therefore. So this square must be red because it can't be another yellow square. It must extend here. And okay, now what do we do? That felt like it was good logic, but it's... here's a bit of logic. Is it possible that this 2 is not a partner, is not in the same pentomino as this red? If it's that, well, you can see that's not going to work, because this pentomino now can only be an n pentomino where it attaches to another n pentomino, which is not right. So actually this has to be red as well, and therefore has to be an x, which forces the loop to turn up and come this way and come through the gap. Neither of these squares can now be in the 2 pentomino because the 2 pentominoes already had its 2 loop segments. So this is a new colour. Let's make that blue. All of those turn blue. This red is forced to be an I pentomino. This is all like this. And I guess I can label these as loop. So here's another bit of logic. It's the same logic again, but it's so cleverly built in. Look at the red pentomino here. Now, if this doesn't take this cell, where does it go? It has to come down and take these 2 cells, and now it either has to be a W, which it can't be because it's next to 1, or it has to be an N, which it can't be because it's already next to 1. All of which means that this square has to take this square, which means that it's definitely that, which forces the loop down. And this is beautiful again, because this now can't be part of the 2 pentomino. So this is a new colour. Let's make that yellow. Now we ask the same question again. Is it possible for this square to not be part of the red pentomino? Well, if it's not, those 2 squares have to be the red pentomino attaches an n to another n. That doesn't work. So this must be in. It's closed off the loop. This comes down. This now forces this to be yellow. What a puzzle. What a puzzle. And now I'm stuck again. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, sorry, let me just take a look at this. We can keep going with this same question, I think. I think the question I have to keep asking is, let's ask the question, is it possible this square is not part of the blue pentomino? If it's not, the blue pentomino has to do that. It's an n pentomino attached to another n pentomino, so this has to be blue. This 5 is now penned in. Look, let's look at this 5. The 5 has to... It can't isolate this 1 pentomino, so it can't take both those cells. So it must take this cell and this cell. So the 1 is a different colour, and now the 1 must take this cell, which means it takes this cell. The 1, this 5 is in the corner. Nobody puts 5 in the corner except Phistomefel. So the 1 is not in the corner. The 1 is not part of the loop, because if it is, it takes 2 cells of the 1. So this is an X. That turns up. That can't be part of the loop for exactly the same reason. Don't close the loop. Now, the 1 can't take both of those squares, because they would make the 1 into a 2 clue. So it must go higher. It must take that square. This one, this is beautiful. Look, that's got a loop segment now. If it's got a loop segment, this square can't be blue. Oh, I tell you what, this red can't take this square, because if the red takes that cell, the blue segment can't be a pentomino. It can only be a triomino, whatever it is. 3 cells in a row. Domino, triomino, probably. So one of these squares is red, and one of these squares is green, because neither of them can be blue. Now, does that matter to us? The answer is, I don't know. It means the blue has to come out further. Look, the blue has to take that square, and it has to be an X. Oh, this is so clever, this puzzle. It's so clever, because now this can't dive this way. We knew that anyway, actually, because one of those has to be red. But this forms a corner, so it turns. That forces this out. This has to be a different colour. Let's label that square up as well. So this square here has to be yellow. One, actually maybe not yellow. Let's make that grey. 1, 2, 3. This has to be loop. Let's put that in. These are all loop. Let's make ourselves feel better by putting all those in and seeing if that tells us anything about the world. I've got something. Look, this 2 pentomino, it can't take that square because that will connect it with another n pentomino. I don't think it can take this square because of what it does to this 2 region. This 2 region now has to take the loop would have to continue down in the yellow region, and it would be a 3rd loop segment in the yellow region. So this 2 has to turn up and be a T pentomino. Now the blue needs a 4th cell. It must be that one. The green now must take this square because it needs exactly 1 more cell. It's having one of these 2. The grey must come out. Now, does that help us? This is a tunnel. It's got to come through here. Now, okay, now we're stuck again. So this 1 pentomino is either an L or a Y. The blue has to come out 1 further. Well, actually, more than 1. Maybe that's the key. Maybe it's got to... Yeah, this is it. Of course. Look, I've now got the blue. The blue is an L. The green mustn't also be an L. So the green must be a Y, which forces the 1 to be an L. That allows us to place that one. And let's see if we can... This must be an... This one pentomino now is attached to a Y pentomino and an L pentomino. So, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. It means something. This is getting very tricky now. Maybe it's the 5 here. If the 5 turns right... 5 turns right. I don't know. I've got something. Right, okay, it's just simpler than I thought. This 1, is it possible this 1 doesn't take this square? If it doesn't take this square, it has to take both of those squares, which would make it an L pentomino attached to another L pentomino. So it takes this square. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because it's going to force the loop to come through this little gap, look. And this can't be a Y pentomino, so must be an N pentomino. And therefore we can close it like that. This square, oh, this is interesting. This square can't be part of the loop now because it would be boxed in if it went into there. So it's not part of the loop. So every other cell on the 4 must be in the loop. And in particular, that square and that square must be in the 4 because the 4 needs to have size 5 at least. Now, that's got, oh, sugar, I didn't mean to do that. This, I want to do a loop segment that comes down here. That extends this loop segment. This grey can come down. The grey must do that. Which of course means that we can do that. Now if the grey doesn't take this square, the grey would be forced to be an N because it would have to take both of those 2 squares. And of course that would connect it with this N. So the grey does drop another cell. It goes to this square. I don't know whether this is in the loop or not, but I know it's grey. Right. Oh, now maybe we revisit the 5. If the 5, we need red for 5. If the 5 doesn't take this square, it must turn right, and it must take both of those squares and be an N. But now that forces the yellow to be an N as well. So what we know from that is that the 5 drops down and takes this square at least. Now this is... Whoa, there's something going on here with the 5. Because the 5 can't take this square now because that would connect an F pentomino to an F pentomino. So the 5 lives to the left-hand side of the cursor now. Now this 1 has suddenly become interesting to me. Now why is that? Well, this 1... How many loop segments have we got here? We've got 1, 2 here. Yeah, there's something weird going on here with this yellow. If this yellow comes down to the bottom of the grid anywhere, you can see that's going to make a wall like that. But now I've got a problem with the puzzle because in this region I've got 2 loop ends and 1 loop end coming in. So I would have a stranded loop end. If a stranded loop end, not a statement I thought I'd ever make. Don't get stranded loop ends. But that means that this yellow region can never hit the bottom of the grid. Now, if that's the case, how do we fit it in? This is interesting for the 5 as well. Look, if the 5 does that, what on earth do we do with the yellow now? We can't pen in the 3. The 3 needs to take 5 cells. The 1 can't hit the bottom of the grid for the reasons I've explained, so it would have to go there, and it would connect 2 U regions to each other. That is not going to work. So the red region has to be an L. And I'm still a bit worried I've broken this actually, because I've still got to get this yellow one into the grid without hitting the bottom row and without breaking the 3. Now, if we look at this, the yellow has taken its loop segment already. So it's not possible for both of these squares to be yellow, because that will isolate the loop, because both of these yellow cells would have to contain an X. So exactly one of these two cells has to be yellow in order to continue the pentomino. And if it's this one, it's absolutely broken, isn't it? Because now, however I do this, if I'm not allowed to take this square, this 3, I'm going to have to take that square, and this square is going to be completely isolated because I'm not allowed to hit the bottom of the grid as well. So this square is not yellow, this square is yellow, and if this square is not yellow, it must be 3, because there's no way we can get this 3 in unless it's taking everything it's going to be allowed to take. Yeah, because now how are we going to get this yellow in now without hitting the bottom of the grid and without isolating the 3? That must be the way it looks. This must drop down. This pentomino, we need a new pentomino along the bottom of the grid. So these, we get that. This can't be an L because it's already attached to an L, which is the 5. This is an I. All of the rest of this pentomino turn X's. That forces this into this region. And look at the bottom of the grid. We need to get out. We've got 3 loop segments in here. We need to introduce another loop segment into this bottom left of the grid. It's going to have to come along here. That takes the 3rd cell of this 3 pentomino. So those turn X. That forces that. That's a corner. It must come through here. Oh, and we've only used 3 of the yellow 3. These turn X. That's all forced. Beautiful. All of these get forced. So now we've just got to we've just got to figure out what this final corner looks like. How do we do that? I have no clue. Those have got to be loops. All of these are loop segments. This is what I do when I'm stuck. I fill in the loop segments that I've not filled in. Look, there's another one there. Another one there. Oh. In fact, this loop needs to come down and hit that. Now. So this 2, that feels like it's the natural place to look now. Yeah, actually maybe. If this 2 goes downwards, what does that do? Because now everything gets very cluttered. Because this is an X now, because we've already got our 2 loop segments in the 2 pentomino. So we've got to turn right, but now we can't connect this. Because if I do, this has made a little loop, and I don't want little loops. What on earth's going on there? So if this does do this, it must turn down. This must turn down. This mustn't connect again. It's got to go down again. This too is getting awfully constrained. Yeah, how do I put this 2 in the grid? Given it can't hit a loop segment and it can't isolate the 3 as this breaks, you can see. It would have to look like this, and now this 3... Oh, maybe it doesn't break. It would break if... It would break if I could force this... Is there a way of doing that? Sorry, I'm just trying to think about whether I can force this to break or not. That would have to do that. This pentomino here. This does break, of course, because what I'd not appreciated is that there's this blue up here is an L pentomino. So this 4 can't be an L pentomino. So it must be an I pentomino, or can it be a Y pentomino? No, it can't be a... Oh, can it be a Y? No, it can't be a Y. That's touching a Y as well. Ah! So this has to... Right, good grief. So this is really complicated. That has to take that cell. And now these 3 white cells here are isolated. There's no way of doing that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this back a little bit. Let's take it back to here and extend this this grey now, because this grey has to be an I pentomino. Now you can see now, actually, that's loop, that's not loop. This has to turn right. Yeah, I mean, it's the same point again. The only way of filling in the yellow is with taking these 2 cells. Whatever shape I then put on the 3 isolates some portion of these white cells here. All of which means, let's go right back to here when I tried to put... is it going to let me, or is it going to go crazy again? Don't go crazy. Please, 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 please don't go crazy. Yeah. So, all of which means this square is not yellow, but I can still put that grey cell in that I hadn't done. So that's got to come... oh, good grief. That's got to come through the wall here. Although now I'm questioning whether that logic was good. Maybe I better undo it just in case it's not. Sorry. This... I can see it's got to do that. If it takes this square, it's either got to be a Y pentomino or an N pentomino, neither of which it can be. So it definitely doesn't take that square. So it does come to here. Its options are an L pentomino, which it can't be, an I pentomino, which it can be, or a Y, which it can't be. So it does do this. It's just I don't think I know whether this is loop or not loop. But I do know the yellow turns right. So the yellow turns right. And that's going to force all sorts of things. Look, it forces the loop through here. Once this cell is loop, it's not yellow. So the yellow again has to continue down here. And down here, the yellow becomes an N. Ah! No, that's okay, because it's shielded from the N on this side by the 4. All of these turn... all of those turn X'd. This has created a tunnel, that's got to come through here. Then it hits an X, turns right. Wow. Wow. But we still haven't resolved it. I tell you what we could do. We can think about the 3 now. This 3... it needs to take 5 cells. So can it take this square? The answer, of course, is no. Because if it takes this square, then it can't take the other 4 white squares in this region that it's just cut off from the rest of the grid. So there would be a 6-cell region, and that's not allowed. So it doesn't take this square. If it doesn't take this square, it must be a P pentomino and look like this. Which means that it has a different pentomino there. Now, if this red pentomino doesn't take this square, it would have to come down and take these squares and become an N pentomino and attach to another N pentomino, so it does take this square. This can't be a P pentomino, so it must extend another square. And it can't isolate this square, so it must take this square. Now it can't be an I pentomino, so it doesn't take this square. It can't take this square or this square because that would isolate a cell. So it's either got to be an L pentomino or a Y pentomino, I think. This square has to be part of the 1. Let's do the easy work first. That's all true. This square is also part of the 1, otherwise, because the 3, although the 3 can get there, it would isolate 3 white cells. But that's not going to work. So this, we've got to be real. Now this is perfect, because now I mustn't make the 1 an I pentomino, because it would attach to the green I pentomino. So this must be red. This mustn't be, the 1 mustn't be a Y pentomino. This is ridiculous. This 1 mustn't be a Y pentomino, so it has to be an L pentomino. Now what cell does the yellow take in order to not touch an L pentomino? It must be a Y pentomino. And that fixes the last region as a green P pentomino. And there, I'm under no illusions, we've not finished, but we have done the pentomino division. So we are left with the challenge of filling in the loop. That can't be loop because it would put 2 in the 1. That can't be loop for the same reason. Interestingly, if this cell doesn't connect here and drops down, because this would then have to drop down, it would take 4 cells in the green. So this does connect here. So this can't come this way, or it would take us a 4th cell in the green. It drops down. It then has to turn. It mustn't take any more green cells. It's got to turn. That becomes an X because we've taken our loop cell in the 1. This has got to come through here. And we've just got to disambiguate this P pentomino. So if this square turned left, it would have a choice. It would either connect here, which breaks the puzzle, because now look, that's a corner, and you have to take a 4th cell in the grey, or it turns down. It's now taken 3 cells in the grey, but what on earth do I do at the bottom here? I've got to close the loop there and come back into the grey again. So that doesn't work either. This doesn't turn left, so it goes down. One, 2. So now this can't turn left. That must go down. And now if this comes this way, it's got to close the loop, and you have to take a 4th cell in the pentomino again. I don't believe it. I mean, the complexity of designing this is completely off the charts. So in fact, this drops right down here. Now we mustn't close this top loop. So this must drop out of the way. We can get our 3rd cell in the P pentomino by joining that up, join those up along the bottom, put our circles in to make ourselves feel like we have made a pretty pattern. And I think this is the correct solution to another Phistomefel masterpiece. That was so hard, I cannot tell you. And just, I mean, isn't it amazing how a puzzle that has that beginning, which is so intricate, can maintain its difficulty the entire duration of the solve? I really hope I've not made a mistake in it. It's very hard to tell whether I've connected 2 pentominoes that I shouldn't have done together, but I can't see that I have. No doubt you will let me know if I have. But I hope you enjoyed watching me try and solve it, and we'll be back later, of course, with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.